Consistency over everything. Self-awareness is a must. And you always gotta keep it real. These are the keys. This is the Continual Growth Podcast, where we want to help you kill every day and own your fucking life. It's episode 24. I'm Bwanka, I'm with Zee. What's good, Zee?
What's going on, brother?
Oh man, we got that hot fire coming.
Of course, as always.
We got a good episode planned. Today is all about perspective.
Perspective? Okay, like in what way? What do you mean by that?
In what way? It just means just everybody looks at life differently. But most people think they just only see life out of their own eyes.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of the big mistakes that a lot of people make is when you're a kid, you're so open to everything because you know you're a kid. So you're like, yo, people older than me, they probably know what they're talking about. So I'm going to be open to what they're talking about. And as we become adults, we lose that openness. Like we kind of get closed-minded in the way that we think. Yeah. We get very narrow, and we think that the way that we're thinking is the way that it is. Yeah, and it's like it's so fixed and so troublesome to me because once you have that fixed mindset, that's it. You've accepted life the way that it is, and if you hate it, you're gonna live a miserable existence. And I think the big thing that I love about perspective is when you're open to many other people's perspective on even one thing, but if you're open to many people's perspective on many things, then you open yourself up to the idea that there's a different way, there's another way, there's a better way. And if you open yourself up to that and you go through that process, who you are at the other side of that experience, you're going to be better for it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think what would be beautiful for this episode, if we can kind of dive into perspective, like maybe your perspective on certain things, maybe mine, and then we can kind of talk about the commonalities and how people can get a lot of benefit from that.
Hell yeah.
All right, so you wanna start off with the story you told me before the episode?
Yeah, so I had a crazy morning. Well, it wasn't that crazy, but when I woke up this morning, it was raining.
Okay.
And I struggle when I see rain. First of all, I run in the morning, so I'm not trying to run in the rain. And I used to work outside all the time, right?
Yeah.
And if it's raining, you still have to work.
Right.
So there was days where I would be just soaked the entire day.
Jeez.
And when I'm soaked, you're miserable.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So whenever I see rain, I think if I go outside, I'm going to be miserable.
Because it happened before.
Because that's what I always just equate the rain with. It's just miserable, right? Okay. So one of the guys that I run with, he told me when we first started, we would run outside in the cold. Didn't matter. We were running. Okay. And then the rain came and I'm like, nope, I'm not going. Rain got me. You're going running by yourself. Right. And he made a video and he said to me man, when I first started running, you told me rain, sun, shine, doesn't matter. We're running. Right.
Right.
And I saw that and I'm like, man, if this guy's running, I gotta be running. So I'm like, let me look at it. Let me look at it differently. Right.
Interesting.
So I get outside, I start running, I'm getting rained on, I'm like, fuck man, I hate all this goddamn rain. But after a minute, you start sweating, right? So you're gonna get wet anyways. So I'm start sweating, I get into my run and I'm like, man, this is actually not that bad. Right? And then I get to the gym, I'm ready to go. I walked into the gym, I was sweating, mixed with rain, but I was ready to go and I was no longer miserable. The rain did not make me miserable anymore.
Interesting.
So I'm looking. So now, next time it rains, I'm gonna be ready again, because I know I'm not gonna be miserable. I'm gonna be outside for 10 minutes. Might get a little bit wet, but I'm going to work out anyway. So I'm gonna sweat. So who cares?
I love that. Let's break that down a little bit. So from what I heard, you had these experiences in the past, working outside in the rain, getting drenched, getting fucking miserable.
Yo, you know how much I hated getting wet? I had this wetsuit, right? And when I would wear it, everybody would be like, yo, Bwanka's got his tuxedo on. They would call my wetsuit a tuxedo because I wanted to wear it all the time because I hated getting wet.
Right.
It's always miserable.
Yeah, and that experience taught you that whenever it rains, you don't have a good life.
100%.
Right. And I think this experience with the guy that you run with him showing you that like, there's another perspective to this. You don't have to have this mindset of like rain is gonna fuck you up, it's gonna make you sick or make you miserable or make you angry, make you upset. It could be an experience worth like exploring. You might find something good by just trying it. And it's something you guys were already doing, running, which you guys liked.
Yeah, even when he started, like, it was cold. It was like -10, -15. He's like, yo, it's too cold to run outside. We got to go on the treadmill. I'm like, nah, man, don't worry. We're going to run. We'll be good. Mm-hmm. And that was, his perspective was, it's too cold. But after he did it for a couple of days, he started realizing, like, it's cold, but it's not that bad. Once I'm moving, it's not that bad.
That's dope. It's dope that you got him to get out of his comfort zone, to run just in the mornings with you, and then to run whether, regardless of what the weather is. You got him to the point that he changed your perspective on running in the rain.
Hell yeah. And that's what continual growth is all about. It's all about people helping people, and in turn it helps you, and like, everybody's just helping each other, growing together.
That's fucking awesome. I love that. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Sick, man.
That was dope. That kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about, which is, perspective is I think a combination of our beliefs, our experiences, what we're told, and all those things formulate stories that we tell ourselves, right? And I think, like you said, that example that you had, like there was a story you told yourself. The story was, when it rains, I'm not happy. I'm not going to go run. I'm not going to do shit. Miserable. That was a story you told yourself, and you accepted that story. And for you to overcome that story because your perspective was broadened because of the guy that you run with, to me, that's such a beautiful way to kind of invite people to broaden their horizons. And the way that you do that, there's a lot of different ways. You can read, you can, go on YouTube, you can go on Netflix. There's so many ways. But I think if you just commit to learning, whether it's through a book, if it's through a documentary or whatever, when you learn shit, it broadens your horizons, right? And the example that I'll use for people, and it's one that really, really touched me. It's a book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, he talks about his experience in the Nazi death camps and how, everybody that made it to that death camp, you knew you were going to die. You knew. That was like, you already accepted death was coming.
Yeah.
And there was people that had that perspective, this was fucking hell. And it was, right? It was. And they accepted that it was hell, and they just like wrote out the days until they died, right? And he talks about how him and a close group of other people, they lived because they had hope that things could get better.
Yeah.
But they also accepted that the circumstances right now, if we can't change it, that doesn't mean we have to be miserable. It doesn't mean that we have to be just totally destroyed inside. And this is somebody that is in a Nazi death camp. Like, none of us could ever imagine what that's like.
No.
Nobody, right? But to hear somebody talk about a situation that's far worse than anything anyone on earth is going through, and they talk about that experience as something that they grew from, that they learned from, that they saw that humanity still does exist. There was still a bit of the elements of love, the elements of the different pieces that make us human. He talks about how that still existed inside the Nazi death camp. So if his perspective in that situation can be so like, I couldn't even imagine someone thinking that way. I couldn't imagine that, right? But to hear him talk about that, like, that really shifted my perspective. Because I'm like, here I am in 2018. Like, life is fucking incredible.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying? Like, comparing the average life of a person now to the average person of a life in 1943, 44, when the death camps were happening, it's totally different. It's totally different. So how the fuck are we miserable when people were in that situation and they weren't? Like, it's to me, it's kind of like, it's a massive, massive disrespect to those people. Because if they can do it, like, fuck, you can do it too. But it's also, it just shows you the power of perspective. You can be in any situation and you can view it completely different from somebody else, right? And to me, that's like it's kind of like wow was the word that I came away with when I read that book.
I think a lot of times we overlook just how good we have it. Like, living in a first world country, like, opportunities are endless, but sometimes we just get stuck in our own in our own heads, and we just think we can only do what we've been doing.
Right.
But that's our perspective.
Yeah.
That's the story we've been telling ourselves.
And don't you think that it's crazy that that perspective exists with social media? Like, a lot of people talk about how bad social media is, and there are certainly elements of social media that are fucking bullshit. But there's lots of elements of it that I find to be really inspiring.
Hell yeah.
And I find it to be like, you can learn a lot. You can broaden your perspective, like I talked about. Like, if you like, imagine 200 years ago, if you lived in whatever village you lived in the world, that's all you knew. You might know the country that you're in, but that's about it. Right now, I can go on Instagram and I can hashtag Greece and see what the fuck's going on in Greece. I can do hashtag Australia and see what the fuck's going on in Australia. And through that, I can broaden my horizons. I can see what's out there. And if you see what's out there, that, like, the realization that what you know isn't all. There's more out there. There's more for you to expose yourself to. You just got to go and do it. You know what I'm saying? And I find to me, it's troubling to me that people have such a horrible perspective of life, especially in today's era when there's so many ways to change it, to do something about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think with Instagram, it's a tool, right? And some people, like, you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. You can scroll on it for all day, or you can use it, like how you were saying, to find so many other things. But that's the same as, like, there's so many other tools, and you have to look at, like, the perspective.
Yeah.
Say there's a knife, right? Someone could think, yo, a knife is good because it's going to help me cut some chicken. But another person is going to say, yo, a knife is bad because you could use that to stab somebody. But that's all perspective.
True. And I love that example. And I think the one thing that I hope people get from what we're talking about with perspective is it's not just like A or B. There's many options, many different perspectives, many different ways to look at things. And I think when you know that, you don't get stuck into this, like, know-it-all mindset, like my way or the highway type of bullshit, because you're just like, you accept that you know something, and if you know something else about that thing, I can learn from that.
Yes.
That adds to my understanding. And you can learn from my understanding. And together we can better build a stronger understanding of whatever we're talking about. And like we were talking about earlier, that's growth.
Yes.
To do that, to be aware of that, to be open to that, to constantly be practicing that, that's continual growth.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. I wanted to make sure we like, on top of this idea of perspective and being aware that there's different ways to look at life. I wanted to give people some practical ways to do that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So one of the things that I think really helps people develop a really healthy perspective of life is gratitude.
Yes. 100%.
You get what I mean? And you kind of touched on it earlier when you were talking about, like, the world that we live in, especially people that live in developed countries, countries where, like, like, I have a computer in my pocket. It has access to the internet 24/7. That's incredible.
But a lot of people think, because it's normal,
right?
It's nothing special,
right?
But really, like, just walking, that's another thing that's normal. But that's incredible. Not everybody can walk. Not everybody has legs, man. Not everybody has straight arms.
We can go even deeper. We could just go to the one of the things that you and I have been very big on is just the gift of life.
Hell yeah!
Like, to be grateful to wake up and just breathe and open your eyes and be like, wow, I'm alive. Like that realization that in itself is a powerful perspective. You get what I'm saying?
And you can really and you can even think about, like, me personally, like, I used to wake up all the time and be like, fuck, man, like, just tired. It probably happens to
every day,
so many people. But if you think about your life then compared to your life now, when you wake up, when you're so grateful, how much more are you enjoying life now than before when you were waking up and saying, oh, fuck, man.
Do you wanna share your gratitude method?
Oh, with the gratitude rock?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to do gratitude.
Sure.
I've tried different things. What I used to do was just, like, take, like, 5 minutes and try to just come up with things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Some other guys, like Stir, uses a book and he writes down like 5 things he's grateful for.
Right.
But what I started doing was, I got this from The Secret. You get a rock and you put it in your pocket. You put it in your pocket every day. At the end of the day, you put it on the nightstand. But every single time that you touch this rock, you think of something that you're grateful for.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know what I mean? So I just touch the rock. So I think about, like, this is incredible what we're doing right now. We have lights. We have 4 cameras, like, and we're trying to help people.
Right.
Our goal is to help people.
Right.
I'm hella grateful for that.
No, that's incredible. You're right. And I think you touched on it. Like, there's many different ways to practice gratitude. And that's a really, really awesome way. I wanted to share my method, which is something that I built off of Tony Robbins. Yeah. Right. So I call it like, it's a 5-step method, right? So I take 5 deep breaths. Like, and I'm not talking about like a deep breath, like where most people take a deep breath. I'm talking about like where I breathe until like there's no possibility for any more air to go into my lungs. And then I breathe out slowly. And the reason why I do that is because I want to be aware of the fact that I'm breathing. For the first like 30 years of my life, I'll be honest with you, bro, I never once ever thought about my breath. Ever.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Self-awareness. Usually your self-awareness is not that high.
It's true. And I never took in the fact that no matter what I'm doing, when I'm fucking depressed out of my mind or when I'm happy as fuck, there's breath going on all the time. My heart is constantly beating. So what I do is take 5 really, really deep breaths. And then I go into and I use my hand, right? I'll say, okay, make a fist. The first thing that I'm grateful for is for my beating heart, right? I make sure that I connect with that, because so many times we get so caught up in our problems that when you just step back from it and hold your heart and see that it's beating, it's like, yo, it's not really a problem. Or there's a problem, here's a solution, I don't have a problem anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's the first thing I do. And then I find 3 things that I'm super grateful for. And I don't just say like, oh, I'm grateful for my girlfriend, Laura. I think of a moment that like I think of deeply. Like I imagine, like how her makeup is, what she's wearing, what restaurant we're at, what we're eating, the time of the day, like that experience, what we talk about. I relive that moment, right? And I find 3 moments to be grateful for.
So you're really feeling it.
Feel it. Like, yeah, I'm not just saying like I'm grateful to live in Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, why? What about Toronto? It's one of the best cities in the world. I go deep into it, right? So first thing I'm grateful for is my beating heart. Then I find 3 moments to be grateful for and really feel them. And then I find a coincidence. So this could be something that like I didn't plan, but it happened. Maybe I met somebody at a networking event and that led to a business deal. Or, we might have had a conversation that helped somebody else help us in a way in one of our businesses. There's so many different things, right? And finding a coincidence to be grateful for just remind you that like, yo, life's happening for you.
Oh yeah.
It's not just happening to you. And I think sometimes when you live a negative mindset, you really feel like, yo, why the fuck is this happening to me? Every fucking terrible thing over and over keeps fucking happening to me. And when you have the mindset of gratitude, you really appreciate that life's happening for you. You maybe didn't get that job that you really wanted and you're upset about it, but there's a reason. You might not see it then, but it's gonna become evident to you. And as long as you keep following your personal mission and following the omens towards achieving your ultimate best self, things will start to fall into place. You just got to appreciate that that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man.
Okay, so the next one is look for what you want. Okay. So meaning in every situation, there's always going to be positive and there's always going to be negative. But it all depends on like what you look for. If you're looking for the negatives, you're going to find the negatives and you're going to feel in a negative way.
Yep.
But if you're looking for the positives, you're going to find the positives and you're probably going to feel more positive from that situation.
It's true.
So it's all about how you look at the situation.
So how could people like find the good in a situation? Like, what do you mean by that? Like when you say that people are looking for the bad or looking for the good, like how can people practically do that? Like what can they do?
You have to ask yourself. It comes back to the self-awareness.
Okay.
You have to ask yourself, like when you're getting mad, you're finding like so many bad things about this situation. You have to ask yourself, like, what out of this situation is good? What from this situation is good? And then you look into it, and I'm sure you'll be able to find at least one thing. And that's what you need to focus on. Don't focus on all the bad things. There could be like 50 bad things happening, but if you just focus on that one good thing, you're going to start to feel better.
True. And I think one of the things I would add to that would be ask why. If you identify something that's good in a situation, and like you said, that's true. There's good and bad in every situation.
Yeah.
But if you identify something that's good, rather than just leaving it surface level, ask why is it good?
Yeah.
Why do I find positivity out of this specific thing? And if you start to go a little deeper with it, you find meaning.
Yeah.
And if you find meaning, you can actually feel the positivity rather than just acknowledge it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The last thing that I would kind of want to leave people with is the idea that there's, and we touched on it briefly, but there's many different perspectives.
Hell yeah.
And the one that I always remember from when I was a kid is math class, right? 5 + 4 = 9, right? And that's true. But 6 + 3 is also 9. 7 + 2 is also 9. 8 + 1 is also 9. And like the point that I'm trying to make with this is that there's different ways to arrive at a common destination. Like if we all want to live a more positive and healthy life, there's more than one way to do that.
Oh yeah.
You know, and what I would say to people is try them. Be open to the different ways. Like I remember when I was more of the average fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Bro, waking up before 7 o'clock was like, there better be a good fucking reason to wake up that early.
And you were just completely against it.
Like I'm like, yo, there's no reason for it. There's no benefit to it. I don't see why it's gonna help me.
Yeah.
So there better be like better be catching a flight.
Yeah.
There gotta be some work that needs to get done.
And it's because your mind wasn't open to what's happening in the morning.
Yeah. And now take that, flip that to someone that like I comfortably wake up between 5:30 and 6. Like, wow. You know what I'm saying? And all that changed is that I tried it.
Yeah.
I tried it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I recently started doing, I used to work out after kind of going through my morning routine. Now I work out first. I move my body first. And I can't tell you one way is better than the other. But what I can tell you is that I'm trying to do a new way and I'm liking it so far.
Sick.
But the end result is the same. It's a better Z. I'm trying to become the best version of myself.
And that's what it's all about. Just being open, trying different things, finding out what works best for you because everybody's different, and then run with it.
Run with it. And that's why I love the 21s, because you can try it for 21 days. If after 21 days you truly, honestly don't like it, try something else. Do something else. There's so many ways to grow.
Oh yeah.
It's not one path. It's not a linear line. It's not like one size fits all. There's so many different approaches, so many different ways, and you just got to try it until you find what works for you. And when you find what works for you, that's when you are killing every day and owning your fucking life, and that's what this is all about. You get what I'm saying?
Less.
Okay, so
that was a dope episode.
Perspective, man. This is important because I think we all get stuck in our heads sometimes, and to know that there's options, to know that there's a process that you can kind of go through to ask questions and explore and learn. Like anybody can do this.
Yo, speaking of that, we're starting to do more Q&A. So if you got any questions for us, send them in and we'll be answering them on the podcast.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited because we've gotten a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And like keep sending them in. Like Bwanka said, we're gonna figure out a way to try to answer those questions in the podcast. But until we get to that, I gotta do some housekeeping real quick. So if you guys enjoyed the podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you would leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about this episode for two reasons. One, it lets us know what you're thinking, but it also exposes the podcast to a broader audience. These algorithms, they all take into consideration reviews as part of their process for determining who sees different podcasts and stuff.
And like we were saying before, that's what this is all about. Helping each other and helping everybody grow as one.
Straight up. And we always say this, but podcast episodes come out every Tuesday. So for you to make sure that you don't miss out on that, it'd be really important to us, and we really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the podcast. And then one final thing, like we do this podcast, we don't have ads, we don't charge any money, we do this for free. And the whole goal with this is to try to help people live their best life through better habits. And for us to be able to reach more people, it's really important that you guys tell your friends, tell your family, let them know that there's a community of people who are working together to live their best lives. And the way they're doing that is by using a practical approach to making sure that the habits that they have in their life align with them living their best life. So with that, kill every day and own your fucking life.
Bless up!
Let's go.